There are some who think wholesaling is an unethical practice. After all, you're getting a contract from a seller at a lower price as if you're the buyer, then assigning or flipping that contract to a real buyer for a higher price without doing any work to the home. So in today's video, I'm going to discuss the 3 major moral dilemmas that some people have with wholesaling, and then the truth about why wholesaling real estate helps people in trouble, why wholesaling brings tremendous value, and how to wholesale with 100% integrity and honesty. And be sure to stay to the end of this video because I'm also going to share exactly how much money you should make per deal wholesaling houses. All of that and more coming up.
For a limited time, you can get a free copy of Jerry Norton's Quick Start Kit with everything you need to flip your first house in 30 days or less. Download it now at myquickstartkit.com.
If you're new here to the channel, I'm Jerry Norton with FlippingMastery.com, and this channel is all about ways to help you make money wholesaling and flipping real estate so you can live your dream life. Be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications so you don't miss new videos. Now, before we dive into the ethics and morality of wholesaling, I want to make something really clear. I'm not talking about the legality of wholesaling real estate. The discussion about whether or not wholesaling is legal is an entirely different conversation, which has to do with real estate licensing law. If you want to learn how I feel about getting licensed and the forthcoming regulation of the wholesaling industry, be sure to watch a video where I break down the recent law passed in the state of Illinois. On that video, I share where I believe the industry is heading and what you should do about it. I'll put a link to that video in the description so you can watch it later. This video is focused on the ethics of wholesaling, and if you don't know, wholesaling as a business practice is when you intentionally get a legally binding contract with a seller to buy a property at a discount with the intent to assign or flip the contract to a real buyer for a fee. For example, if you execute a purchase and sale agreement with a seller for $50,000 as the buyer and then flip the contract via an assignment contract to another investor for, let's say, $60,000, in the end, the seller gets $50,000, the buyer pays $60,000, and you make a $10,000 wholesale fee. Now, that's an explanation in its simplest form. I have over 400 videos to date on this channel about wholesaling and flipping, so there's more to it than that, but the basic concept is to get a contract with a seller and then flip it to another buyer for a fee. And herein lies 3 common moral dilemmas that some people have. The first is telling the seller you're going to buy the house for cash when clearly you do not have any intention of buying the home, let alone the cash to buy it. And that's not being honest. People say to me, how can I say I'm a cash buyer with integrity when clearly I'm not? Now you can see how this could be an issue for some. Some believe the way to solve this is to be transparent with the seller and tell him or her upfront your intentions are to wholesale the property. But I can tell you that's a bad idea and you won't do very many deals because most sellers either don't understand wholesaling, and even if they did, they typically won't agree to that. In fact, I did an entire video about why you should not tell the seller you're a wholesaler. Now I'll put a link to that video in the description below and you can watch it later. So what is the right answer? How can you be honest with the seller while not divulging that you're going to wholesale the property? The solution, in my opinion, is quite simple actually. I never refer to the buyer as me. I don't say, I'm going to buy your home for cash. Instead, what I say is, me and my investors or me and my partners are going to buy your house for cash. Investors or partners is referring to your cash buyers. Now, to really grasp this concept, you have to understand the big picture of what's going on. In the marketplace, there are motivated sellers who own distressed real estate, and then there are investors who have cash to buy, fix, and rent or flip those distressed properties. A seller who wants to sell their unwanted distressed property and an investor who has the capital and the means to buy their unwanted property is the natural evolution of real estate investing. It's what makes the world go round. It's a beautiful process of improving homes and neighborhoods, increasing real estate values in markets, providing homes for people to live in. It's a great service to both homeowners and investors, and everyone wins. A wholesaler brings tremendous value to the real estate investing industry, to both the seller and the buyer, because you are the great mediator. You bridge the gap and you bring motivated sellers and cash buyers together. Wholesalers actively market and find distressed sellers who often don't know where to turn and provide them a fast solution. And then wholesalers help investors by doing all of the work to find distressed and discounted properties that need fixed up and are good investments. So let me tie this in with the moral dilemma number one, which was not being honest when saying I'm a cash buyer. As a wholesaler, you are essentially partnering with cash buyers. Think about it. Your part of the partnership is to spend time, energy, and effort, sometimes advertising and other costs, to source and find good deals. You are basically the acquisitions department for a cash buyer investor because now he or she doesn't have to do all of the work to source and find deals, and as such, they pay you out a piece of the profit up front for finding the deal. This is the partnership in its truest sense. So instead of saying to a seller, I'm gonna buy your house for cash, instead say, me and my partners are gonna buy your house for cash. You can say that with 100% integrity. At the time of executing the contract with the seller, you don't know yet which partner you're gonna use on that particular deal, so you sign on the contract as the buyer, and then once you identify which partner is gonna be the actual buyer, you assign the contract to that partner, and they step in and pay you an early partner payout, since your role in the partnership is to find the deal. Do partnerships pay each other equity fees and distributions and partner splits and so on? Yes, all the time. That's totally normal. So if the seller or anyone asks what the wholesale fee is on the closing statement, the answer is easy. It's a partner profit distribution fee. You can say that with 100% integrity because that's what it is. So if you told the seller from day one that you and your partners buy houses cash, then at the closing, it's not weird or odd or wrong or lying that your cash buyer is there because he is the partner you mentioned. Okay, let's get really real now. The second moral dilemma is actually the main reason why some people have a problem with wholesaling, and that is they don't see the value in the role of a wholesaler, and as such, believe that wholesalers take advantage of the sellers by paying less than what the end cash buyer is willing to pay. For example, if a cash buyer is willing to pay $60,000 for a good investment and a wholesaler contracts with the seller for $50,000 and wholesales it for $60,000, some would argue that the $10,000 fee the wholesaler makes is dishonest, because if the seller were to go direct to the cash buyer, he would have made $10,000 more by selling the property for $60,000 instead of $50,000. Now, this idea that the wholesaler is somehow dishonestly taking money from the seller in the transaction is just asinine for four main reasons. Reason number one is if that were true, then that would hold true for every retailer in America. Isn't that what Walmart does? A manufacturer makes the macaroni and cheese, and Walmart marks it up and sells it to the end buyer. And that is what every retailer does. The same is true for the distressed real estate industry. There is a wholesale price and there is a cash buyer price. Wholesalers find and acquire distressed properties at wholesale pricing and then flip those distressed properties to cash buyers at market value. It's the exact same thing that every single industry does. By the way, did you know that in the furniture industry, the markup between wholesale and retail on average is 200 to 400%? And this brings me to reason number two why the idea that wholesaling real estate is stealing from the seller is ridiculous, and that's because the seller doesn't know how or where, or in most cases, even wants to find the end cash buyer. Just like a furniture manufacturer doesn't want to showcase furniture and manage a sales team and advertise and do all of the work it takes to get a higher price. The same is true for wholesaling real estate. The seller wants to get rid of the property and is willing to sell it at a discount, and the wholesaler solves that problem and provides a solution. Similarly, cash buyers aren't willing and don't want to do all of the work to find good deals and will gladly buy them from wholesalers so long as the price meets their buy criteria. The third reason why the idea that wholesaling real estate is stealing from the seller is absurd is because no one is forcing the seller to accept your offer. If the seller thought he could get more for the property, he would say no to your price. Now, I recently did a 3-part video series where you, the viewer, got to look over my shoulder as I wholesaled a house in Indianapolis from start to finish for $50,000 to a cash buyer for $78,000. By the way, if you'd like to watch that video series, I'll put a link in the description below for you. Well, in a few of the comments on those videos, I was accused of taking advantage of the seller, that I should have paid him more and made less on the deal. I even explained on the video that the seller was asking $50,000 and I paid him $50,000. I paid his full asking price of $50,000. I didn't force him to sell it to me for $50,000. I didn't put a gun to his head and make him sell it to me for $50,000. And why didn't he find a buyer himself for $78,000 and make another $28,000 more? He could have if he wanted to, but he didn't. The fact of the matter is when wholesaling, no one is forcing a seller to accept your offer, and if the seller thinks they can get more, they'll hold out for a higher price. This actually just happened to me where a seller was asking $99,900 and he turned down my offer of $85,000, and I came back and offered $105,000 and he still didn't accept my offer, and the seller was able to find a buyer for even more than what I offered. And guess what? Good for him. This happens all the time. Now, I did a video about this situation and the mistakes that I made. I'll put a link to that video in the description below if you'd like to learn from my mistakes I made. Okay, the fourth reason why the idea that wholesaling real estate is stealing from the seller is nonsense is because it's a lot of work to source and find deals. Wholesalers work really hard to find and identify motivated sellers and negotiate and get the contracts. Oftentimes there's advertising costs and overhead, and there's definitely time, energy, and effort. Now, I tell new wholesalers to be prepared to make 100 offers before you get your first deal. So are you telling me you shouldn't be compensated for that? I believe not only should you be compensated, but compensated well. There's a reason why cash buyers buy from wholesalers. Since I'm a cash buyer and I do fix and flip deals anywhere in the US, and since I have capital to do deals and systems in place to buy them and fix them and flip them, I'm looking for deals and I rely heavily on finders and wholesalers to bring me deals. In fact, I have a finder program where you can find and submit deals to me that fit my criteria, and I'll pay you $10,000 for every deal. Now, to learn more about how to become a finder for me, go to my10kcheck.com. But the reason why I rely on finders and wholesalers is because I don't want to do all of the work to create and manage an acquisitions team in every market where I do deals. I'd rather skip that step, let the wholesalers work really hard to find good deals, and then buy those deals directly from the wholesalers. And I'm glad you made it this far in the video, because here's the bottom line. If you do not see the huge value a wholesaler brings to the market, then you will never succeed as a wholesaler. Why would you ever be good at something you don't think provides value? And this brings me to the third and final moral dilemma that I hear often, and that's on the idea that a wholesaler should only make a certain amount of profit per deal. Anything over that amount, and the rest should be given back to the seller or passed on to the cash buyer. Now, earlier I mentioned a video series I did where I wholesaled a deal I acquired for $50,000 to a cash buyer for $78,000, and how I was accused of making too much money on the deal. That I had a moral obligation to only make a nominal wholesale fee and either give the rest back to the seller or pass the savings on to the cash buyer. Now, this baffled me that someone else had a moral judgment on how much money I should make on a deal. In their mind, a certain amount of profit on a deal is okay, but anything over that is too much and greedy or bad. Now, this is a dangerous thought to place a limit on yourself and especially on someone else. The reality is there is no limit on how much you should make on a deal. Just like there's no limit on the size of home you live in, or how nice of a car you drive, or how much money is in your bank account. Don't confuse a motivated seller and how much a wholesaler makes on a deal with right and wrong. Don't place your personal judgment on how much money someone else should or shouldn't make. Before releasing this video, I posted a survey on the community tab here on the Flipping Mastery TV channel, and I asked how much money was okay to make on a wholesale deal. $5,000, $10,000, $15,000, and I loved some of the responses I got. Gerald Meow said, "If everyone is in agreement, it doesn't matter what each person makes. My profit is no one's business but my own." Now, I love the response from Chance Washington. He said, "A wholesaler can make as much as they want. There shouldn't be a limit. It's not their fault that the seller agreed with them on a deal that leaves lots of profit on the table for the wholesaler. And for the buyer, he or she shouldn't be worried about how much the wholesaler is getting out of the deal. As long as the wholesaler meets the criteria that the buyer wants in order for the buyer to buy the contract, there shouldn't be an issue at all." Chance Washington, I couldn't have said it better myself. Now, do you right now watching this, do you agree? Leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. But here's the affirmation I have for you. Read this every day until it becomes ingrained in your subconscious. As a wholesaler, I bring tremendous value to both motivated sellers and cash buyers. My income is in direct proportion to the value I provide to the marketplace, and the more value I bring to sellers and buyers, and the more problems I solve, the more money I make. There is no limit on the number of deals or the size of deals or the profit per deal that I can do. I am a real estate wholesaler. Now, if you believe that, then declare it to the universe, make it your mantra by writing it in the comments below and state it to the universe. And if you learned something on this video, show some love, hit that like button right now. And if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to my channel. I'm dedicated to helping you make more money in less time wholesaling and flipping houses so you can live your dream life. Do that now, and I'll see you on the next video.